Welcome back to Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kin, your host, Max Derrat, and I'm joined again, as always, by Mr. Sybsidian of the Triple S League. We got a lot of stuff to.
Howdy.
Yeah, how's it going, man?
It is going. It is going. We are
Mm-hmm.
going.
As much as one can when it's 2 degrees outside. Yes, that's Canadian weather for you guys. Although I'm down here in the U.S. at the moment, so but I can sympathize. I lived in Canada most of my life, but yeah, we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about video game news, and there's a lot of it, a lot of it. I'm gonna warn you up front. There's a lot of bad news. It's what sells, but I'm just warning you
It's
anyways.
it,
But
it's so common these days. It's sad.
yeah, but I'm but like that's just the first part of the sentence. We actually do have some good news that we're going to save for the end of the show. So just stick around with us. It's stuff that I think is very very positive, at least for me. It involves Alan Wake in control, and one or two other things. Anyway, we're just going to get the bad stuff out of the way. Sybe, so man, I have no idea what the hell's going on over at Bungie nowadays. Like, we're just getting these leaks, and none of them are good. And the latest one apparently has to do with, I think, not the lead director, but the former lead director of Marathon, which is sort of like their next extraction shooter that's coming out based on one of their old IPs. What happened with him?
So he was accused by several people for inappropriate behavior, according to people familiar with the matter. By a one Mr. Jason Schreier.
Ah, okay.
So as much as you can take that for what it is, and again with accusations, it always is kind of
Murky, yeah.
um, it is very murky these days, and that is very unfortunate, because it shouldn't be, but it is, and that's the problem. We have had a number of cases in the games industry where there's been really horrible stuff gone on by very boorish behavior from certain people, and then we've had a lot of fake accounts that once dragged through the courts was realized to be fake. And it wasn't like, oh, there's no actual evidence because it was like 10 years ago, and evidence has disappeared. It's like, no, they got caught, you know in their cell phones between conspirators, making up the instances, trying to make it fit with what they could because they could get something for nothing, right? Um, or because they had the weirdest one was where some people were like, "There's not enough moments in the gaming industry, so we should just make some up because then that will put the fear of um, cancellation into people, and therefore they won't do bad stuff." But it's like, yeah, but there's already very few cases of bad stuff happening, so why would you, like, it's one of the safest industries to be in. It's like, why would you go out of your way to like try and create more? So anyways, I don't know the details on this, just that this is what's been going on. This is Barrett. Barrett said that after nearly 25 years at Bungie, that he feels that he's conducted himself with integrity, and he is always respectful and supportive of his colleagues, many of whom he considers his closest friends. Never understood my communications to be unwanted, and I would never have thought that they could possibly made anybody feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If anybody has ever felt that way with the interactions with me, I am truly sorry. Um,
It's hard not to
but
jump to a snap judgment just because this has been such a frequent story that we've been hearing in the
yeah,
games industry lately, and um, a lot of credible examples where people have been engaged in bad behavior. But based on, like, I don't know if the article goes more in detail, man, but based on just what you're telling me, it doesn't seem like there's anything definitive one way or the other. It's just, we don't know. But, like, maybe they saw enough and that was enough to push him out. Maybe that's reasonable to surmise.
yeah, possibly. Again, with these ones, you really don't know because, like, I'll point to, like, Blizzard. It's like Blizzard. There was some really bad stuff going on there
The
for a
worst.
very long time, and it was well documented. Somebody died, right? Like that. that is how far that kind of stuff goes with this. With this, um,
It's not good, but
af-
it's not as bad.
well, so in one case, he asked them to play Truth or Dare. Now, again, like I get, like,
Jeez.
some people are really bad at communication. Some people are greasy and gross. But some people, like, Truth or Dare is like they didn't say what it was about. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like, huh, okay. Then there was a complaint that, there was some suggestion that he could help advance their career.
Oh,
But
God.
again, that's
That's
not
not necessarily, yeah, not necessarily. Well, like, what came after that? I can help advance your career, because usually that
right, because that's
implies
the
a
whole
quid pro
thing,
quo,
right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't know if that's actually it, or if that was just like he suggested that he could help advance my career, so therefore I assumed the worst. Or it was like, hey, if you come with me on my vacation to this completely clothing optional beach, I can help your career, right?
Right.
Right. So it's like, oh yeah, it's like 3 weeks, and it's like, and there's only one hotel room with one bed. All right, so that's a pretty clear indication, right? Or it's like somebody coming on really, really strong. And again, it's like people don't shouldn't have to deal with that stuff in work. It gets, I know it gets irritating, and there's always like this. There is a power dynamics, and we really have lost as a society for the most part. I think we've really lost the proper context behind, like, proper power dy and I don't know, I don't have a solution to that. Like this
Yeah.
was something that was never quite, I mean, you know, it's like you go back 300 years, power dynamics were way worse than it is now, right? You go back 3,000 years and it was 1,000 times worse than it is now.
So we're making
So
progress, relatively
yeah,
speaking. Yeah.
we're making generalized progress. And again, the reminder, this isn't one particular faction or large base group versus another large base group. This is like, these have always been a small minority of power hungry, power obsessed people, making things like that. And or it's a lot of very, like, bad people trying to get ahead by throwing other people under the bus, right? So like there's always been these kinds of people, right? This is not new. This is something that's been around since we were probably amoebas, or
Hmm.
something akin to lobsters, I would imagine. It's just like it's a current problem that we're slowly getting better in. And again, I wouldn't um so one thing I would say for sure is that from my perspective, it's like, always just generally be nice, be kind, try to communicate as best you can, but never apologize for something you never did. Because that seems to be like, that doesn't make things better. And out of everything I've seen, that this just really, it just digs a deeper hole that you have to kind of dig yourself out of.
Yeah.
So like, be confident in what you do, be kind, be try to be as normal as you can. And trust me, like, me and Mooney, we worked together, we found each other. um we had a lot of, like, journey through working together, to the point where we decided, hey, you know what would make life a lot easier, if we if we just, like, lived together and got married, because that would just be super easy and
Hmm.
convenient. But that's not always the case, and it's always very difficult to, like, and I had definitely had some moments where I was like, should I ask her out? Should I suggest that we
Right.
date? Because this is a very, very difficult area, especially when you're working with somebody. But she took the first moves on that, so
Yeah.
that was extremely handy.
If I recall correctly, like when you were telling me about that, you're like the first thing you said to her was like, "You know, what'd be really nice, honey? Tax benefits." No, I'm just kidding.
Right. So it's like there's all kinds of ways to approach this. And again, as autistic people,
Yeah.
like, we know how hard communication is, and we understand that it is very difficult sometimes. So there's no easy way around this. The allegations here, are not seem to be more around somebody who's just generally flirtatious.
Yeah.
Um, and again, reserving judgment on this particular individual themselves. I think that you should just jump on one thing. I'm not a huge fan of Ubisoft or Activision or Sony at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's been in all those games, but it's it's just not. When people say this is a clear problem and indication of frat boy culture, it's like
I
I
mean,
don't like that's fair. That's
there's circumstances where that's true, and other
there
times
is,
where it's
and it
not.
and it is sort of newer, right? Like you do have that is a newer problem, and by newer I mean like in the last 15 years it seems to be newer, because the
Mm-hmm.
15 years prior to that it was nerds. Those were definitely not frat boys. Those were the hyper nerds who got shoved into got shoved
Lockers.
into lockers. Thank you. When they were in high school and college, right? Like this wasn't even like grade school. This was just like, I mean, that happened then too. But it's like these were the targets, often quite far into their life, and these were the kind of people who built a lot of the game industries that we know of. And the thing that's really annoying is that you look at companies like Activision, you look at companies like Ubisoft is a bit different because it was always a family run thing. But you look at EA, you look at these kinds of companies, and yeah, the what the problem was is that the frat boys, the actual frat boys, who are, how do I say this nicely, uh, slimy business people,
Yep.
um, like Bobby Kotick, like the last, like, I think 10 people who've been running EA. You look at all of them and you just it's not even hard. You just kind of like lightly dig into their history, and it's like yeah, that is the frat boy culture.
Yeah.
But these were the people who came into the industry after it was built and took over companies like Activision, like Blizzard, and just said, "Hey, yeah, no, we're running the show now," which is strangely enough, in a lot of cases, was the exact same thing of shoving the original founders into lockers.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like this, you take it with a grain of salt. You never ignore it because that's not the right thing to do. You never believe it on its face because that's not the right thing to do. Because as soon as people realize that they could just make general accusations, it's just going to be a madhouse, right?
Yeah.
Um, I remember hearing somebody talk about how, like, in colleges now, if you get like a slight worry of like, oh no, I may have been a little too drunk last night, it's literally a mad dash to see who can file the complaint paperwork against the other person first.
Mm.
And that's like, oh, I could not imagine trying to live in that kind of a thing. So you don't
It's a
want to you
nightmare.
don't want to do that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a nightmare. So general reminder to this story is like,
Trust but verify.
trust but verify, take some time, and then just in your general conduct at work, it's like, just try to be as like courteous as you can, and just try to, like, cover your butt as much as you can too, because it's this kind of stuff happens a lot. And this is just stuff where it's like, nobody gets killed if you make a wrong decision at work, in the, like, in the accounting department, right? Other jobs where like some of the jobs I work on, it's like, yeah, you could never make a mistake, because if you make a mistake, lots of people die.
Right.
So it's not that, it's the cover your own butt in the responsible way, not the slimy lawyer way.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the news.
Yeah. Just one last note on that. It's just kind of interesting. As somebody who's been a long time Halo fan, I seem to recall like 2 or 3 years ago when Halo Infinite was coming out, and how people were like, "Man, if only Halo were being run by Bungie." And fast forward 3 years, and aside from the whole potential sexual harassment element, it's seeming like Bungie's sort of going through the same thing that Halo was going through and 343 was going through the 2 or 3 years ago. Just something interesting I thought I'd point out. Anyway, moving on from that, let's talk about side. Did you know that Concord came out last Friday? So
Yeah,
yeah, we're
I've heard
recording
about
this.
it.
Yeah, we're recording this on the 29th of August. That's Thursday, and yeah, it came out just under a week ago. Um, I well, I'll get into my because I played the game and I gave my thoughts on it a while ago. I played it during the beta, but I'll save that for just a second. Obviously, sort of Concord has become a huge meme for people to crap on it and use that as sort of the example for you know, people in the games industry being completely tone deaf to what gamers actually want and what the market wants. But it wasn't clear to people just how big of a failure or how big of a success it was going to be until the game came out. I mean, like, there's certain metrics you could rely on. Not a lot of people are playing the closed beta, and you could infer from that fact that because the closed, well, sorry, no, it wasn't a closed beta, it was an open beta. What am I talking about? But you could infer from the fact that the free open beta, barely anybody was playing it, that people weren't going to buy the game because it was $40 up front and then invest hours of their time into the game, which is what live services demand of people, right? Side, I wasn't expecting it to be this bad. So I checked Steam charts at 2 o'clock today on Thursday. When I looked at it, there were 130 people playing at that time, with 190 people for the 24-hour peak, and the all-time peak was 660. Now, for people who don't keep a track of numbers frequently, but might know the titles of games, I'm going to do a comparison for you. So Skull and Bones, that's the pirate game from Ubisoft that took forever to come out and is also a live service. When it came out, well, I mean, no, sorry, I got the all-time peak numbers here. So for Skull and Bones, their all-time peak was 2,600. So that's less than Concord got less than a quarter of that. Suicide Squad, which is, you know, for the better part of this year, has sort of been the punching bag and sort of the golden child, for lack of a better word, of why live services are bad and why people don't want any more of them. That game's all-time peak was 13,000, and even with that, people were talking about, like, God, that's absolutely unsustainable for a live service. What the hell are they thinking? And, you know, it's obviously much lower now, like the 24-hour peaks and all that. Redfall, even though that wasn't it was intended to be a live service, and then it sort of became like a soft live service. That game debuted to, why do I keep saying debut? I'm sorry. That game's all-time peak was 6,200. And Concord, I remind you, 660 all-time peak. It is not getting any higher than that. This game was in development for 8 years, ladies and gentlemen. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, maybe, I don't know, not hundreds of millions of dollars.
But no, it was about 100. From what I heard, everything that I heard, it was 100 million.
Okay, just right at that mark. Okay, gotcha. That's still ridiculous. This will go down in history as one of the biggest financial flops in the history of gaming. And it's sad. You know,
I mean, we've had several like this come out over the last like 5 years, and I think a lot of them, I mean, I'm pretty sure Suicide Squad was worse, because I heard some metrics on that were like closer to 200 million.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know, like past like advertising, and it wasn't just the cost of making it, it was the licensing, right?
Yeah.
The licensing was like, you know, just this huge thing where they're like, oh yeah, you know, we're going to get it. And imagine being the investor on one of these things. And it's like, you can understand why some people are really nervous about investing into video games, and why they demand so much. I'm not saying that it's good or okay, because I really don't think it is, the way that there's very, very aggressive, you know, I'd say almost hostile, like, intent to make money, like microtransactions, stuff like that. But you can kind of understand it when games do come out like this. But there's an easy solution for this, and we're going to talk about it in the next story. Is like, it just comes down to, like, do you not know how to make games good anymore? Like that's really all it really does come down to. Concord is the same thing, right? Like,
well,
same with,
kind of, like, for me. So sorry, finish what you were saying.
Like just yes, I know there's differences and there's slight variations of it, but it's like team um, multiplayer shooter that's that runs on a treadmill of like doing activities and running up battle passes and stuff like that. It's like we've had this for like over a decade now. Like this exact same thing. And there's not a whole lot of difference. Like there's a lot of like visual differences, but the overall experience of play that you have is about the same.
Yeah.
Really, when you think about it, is about the same from, the first one of those games, like Overwatch,
Right.
and what this is. It's like, yeah, they have slightly different modes, but a lot of it is just the same.
It's not,
And
yeah, there's not enough to separate it from people that have done it for a longer time, have larger fan bases, and have cooler rewards for spending a larger amount of time with the game. Yeah, and that's exactly what Concord's problem is. It's not that it's a bad game. You know what, Cyb? Like, of all the games that I mentioned, Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, Redfall, I would rather play Concord than all those games because it, like, the differences that are a part of Concord's formula compared to all the other 5v5 arena shooters are ones that I actually like because it gets closer to Halo, which is what I tend to look for when I play my shooter games. It's ones where you're not going to die within like a split second if somebody sees you. That's why I hate playing Call of Duty. But with Concord, it's like at least an engagement that lasts 4 or 5 seconds every time you encounter somebody. You don't die within a second or less. That's what I particularly liked about Concord. But the problem is, it's not a game that I'm willing to pay $40 for and then spend hundreds of hours in trying to get all the coolest aesthetics, trying to become the best at all the different game types. It's just, I mean, like, I'm not obviously the target audience for that. Obviously, a lot of the games that I play are single player story focused games, but I've dabbled in those games enough, and I know that my opinion is certainly not uncommon. And if it wasn't, obviously more people would be playing it. So, but I also say that it's sad because, like, it's not like the developers didn't try. It seems it's just because the game functions well. I enjoyed like playing it for like the 2 or 3 hours that I did when I played it in the open beta. But yeah, it's just not something that I'm willing to invest a lot of my time in. So it's sad, but maybe it's a necessary sacrifice to make the final push against the live service trend, and then ideally the AAA gaming landscape will get itself back on track. Worst case scenario, it completely falls and we just rely on indie games.
yeah, indie games are not going away, and a lot of people are like, "Oh no, it's the crash! It's the crash! It's the crash!" Trust me, we're not anywhere close to a crash. Like we're really not. All you have to do is look at Steam, look at Patreon, look at where the new indies are, like the new big indies, like the
Itch.io.
really hyper polished, really nice indie games are coming from. It's not coming from the big studios. The big studios have a few like insta brands like on trigger, but that's about it. Like that really is going all they have going for them. And
Yeah.
we're going to see like companies like Ubisoft, like Activision, like because like not Activision like Microsoft, but like their division, like they're suffering right now. Activision is, not Blizzard. Blizzard's actually having a grand old time. The newest expansion dropped for WoW, and it's generally positive. Like it's positive in all the ways that it needs to be positive. Of course, there's stupid dumb drama that happens, because yeah, that happens. But it seems like they've finally gotten the actual like story and gameplay back into like an actually good place.
Good.
But but overall, again, like companies like EA, it's like they're gonna eventually go poof because they're
Well,
just not good with what they do. They don't offer anything other than the big mega brands, and as soon as one of them falls, again, you're just gonna see like this torrent of hemorrhaging because a big mega company doesn't need to lose, $40 trillion, they only need to not make as much as they promised they would make last year
That's true.
before everybody pulls out and they're left high and dry and there's no way for them to recover. That's
Mhm.
why you never sell out more than I would say you never sell out more than like 20% of your stock.
Yeah.
Because if you sell out 50%, you're stuck in a you're stuck. You if they all revolt, you're just done because you're going to be fighting the board, you're going to be fighting trying to control stuff. If you sell 40%, you're going to lose 40% of your company. How can you exist without 40% of your company? If you lose 10% of your company, you might be able to recover. 20% also maybe. But yeah.
Sorry, I I just needed to mute my mic because I was trying to move my
Yeah.
notes around here. Yeah, what you said is a reasonable point, Saib. I think it's going to take a little bit longer before something like that happens because EA in particular has the sports games, which are a huge cash cow for them. It pisses me off. Anyway, but yeah, your general point is correct. Anyway, yeah. So Concord, it's a live service disaster that is a little bit more sad and maybe less deserved, but overall it is still, like, I would tend to say, like I just said, it's sort of like an inevitable sacrifice, a necessary sacrifice and tragedy. Anyway, what isn't though, or shouldn't have been an inevitable sacrifice and tragedy, is Crash Bandicoot 5. I can't talk. Crash Bandicoot 5. Saib, I've gone on and on multiple times on this podcast about how much I love Toys for Bob. What they did with Crash Bandicoot 4 and the Spyro Reignited trilogy is absolutely astounding. I've wanted anything that they've produced ever since they produced Spyro Reignited trilogy. And they didn't do Insane Trilogy, did they? I gotta look into that again. I don't think they did. But anyway, yeah. So ever since they did those games, especially since Crash 4, which is one of my favorite games of the last 5 years, I've wanted a new single player experience from them. And recently, we learned about some of the plans that they had before, a whole bunch of behind the scenes drama happened. And well, we learned this past week about what some of those plans were and what some of that behind the scenes drama was from a video posted on Did You Know Gaming, which is fantastic YouTube channel that compiles the history and facts about a variety of different games. I'm still waiting for my opportunity to do my own video for the Metal Gear Solid series whenever that happens. But actually, just fun little story on that that some people might not know. Saib, are you aware of that channel? Did you know gaming?
I think so.
Okay, so yeah, what they'll do is they'll bring in often they'll bring in people who are famous on YouTube for covering certain topics, and let them do the voiceovers for their scripts.
Oh
Yeah. And I was actually in the running to voice a video of theirs on Metal Gear Solid. But then what happened was they actually got in contact with David Hayter, and he said, "Hey man, I'll voice your scripts for you." And I'm like, "Damn it, yeah, go for David Hayter." And people who don't know anything about Metal Gear Solid, David Hayter is the voice of Solid Snake, so it's like, I mean, of course you got to get him. So I don't know, maybe when they'll do Silent Hill facts, they can bring me on. That'd be cool. But anyway, back to Did You Know Gaming. They put out a video talking about the fact that Toys for Bob, following the success of Crash Bandicoot 4, were actually in the pre-planning stages and the prototyping stages for a Crash Bandicoot 5. And Saib, this game was apparently going to focus on bringing the Crash Bandicoot universe and the Spyro universe together into a single platformer. Oh my god, my inner, like, when I heard that, my inner child just burst out with joy. It was like Christmas morning all over again. I got that keen feeling in my heart. Guys, you have no idea, like, in case you haven't been listening to this podcast for a while, or you're just tuning in for the first time, my love for Spyro is ridiculous. it it's Spyro 3 is like in the top 5 favorite games of all time. Thank God that they're making Spyro 4, it looks like. But anyway, it's still a tragedy that such an interesting idea never really happened. And we actually learned from this video why that might have been. And, it just goes to prove what we've been saying for several years and what gamers have been preaching forever, is that Activision are full of scumbags. So, Activision, when Crash Bandicoot 4 came out, they were unhappy with the initial sales. Now, Crash Bandicoot 4 went on to sell 5 million copies, which 90% of game studios would kill to have those kinds of numbers. But it just wasn't initially successful, and this was because Crash Bandicoot 4 released at the same time as some more popular games that were coming out. I think it came out like late 2018, late 2019, something like that. There was the price tag, whereas the Insane Trilogy sold for like $39.99 and had 3 old games in it. Crash Bandicoot 4 sold for like $59.99. So there was that. And there were the lack of ports. And, one thing that the game cited that the video cited that is actually a good point is that when Crash Bandicoot 4 initially came out, it didn't release on the Switch. And the Switch is the go-to platform for a lot of people that are looking for platformers and, cheap platformers at that. But, the ports did eventually come out and it sold 5 million. But because those initial sales were weak by Activision standards, Toys for Bob, and this is something that we reported on back when it happened, they became a support studio for Call of Duty Warzone and Overwatch 2. Oh, God, it just makes me so disgusted.
The brilliance behind them, the absolute brilliance. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So overall, the video places blame at executive incompetence, and also cites several ex-Toys for Bob staff that said that Activision didn't really know what to do with them. And so, as we now know, Toys for Bob has gone independent and are now working on it. I'm not a betting man, but I would bet good money that the next game that they're working on is Spyro 4. And thank Christ, thank Cthulhu, thank Yahweh, I don't care what God, you should be thanking your lucky stars that game is coming out. I certainly am. But, it's just complete. One thing that we've been talking about forever here, Syb, especially recently with like what happened over at Microsoft with the closure of Tango Gameworks until they got picked up by Krafton, and Arcane Austin and all that. When you have talent, it's very difficult to replace that. It's especially difficult to replace all that talent under one roof, and it's especially difficult to replace talent that can work together in harmony. Toys for Bob are full of talented developers. And so many of them got like thrown to the side because, Crash Bandicoot 4 didn't sell 10 million copies. It sold 5 million copies. Oh, that's just not good enough. Yeah, and if only they had kept them under their roof and, let them continue to build on the amazing name recognition of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, and they would probably have a pretty decent golden child with Toys for Bob. But just because they weren't as big as Call of Duty or as big as Overwatch or generating as much money, but karma is it's gonna bite them in the ass. And I hope that when Spyro 4 comes out, everybody buys the game. I'm certainly gonna be buying multiple copies. I'm gonna be doing everything that I can to promote that game. Anyway, yeah. So that's my little rant. Syb, anything you want to say about this?
Well, I'll just tie it into the stuff that I'm going to talk about in the next topic.
Sure.
But yeah, it's so Blue Protocol came out. This was a game by Amazon Studios. It was actually a different studio was working on it.
Oh.
This was an MMO. We talk about MMOs from time to time because they're my guilty pleasure. I really do like them. I love seeing where I rank up against most other people. It's fun. I like them. Apparently most other people didn't like this, and I can tell you why it failed is because it was a game that should have come out probably 15 years ago. Graphics were slightly better than that. Gameplay identical to something that came out 15 to 20 years ago. And not the good gameplay, the bad gameplay. I don't understand how you can have so many open world adventure games that have like actual general like interesting stuff going on, and then you can release an MMO where you walk out into a field and you see 180 mobs that are just standing there, not doing anything, just literally just standing there waiting to be killed. It's like I don't know, like there is a lot of like things in the MMO genre that are not good. This clearly being one of them. Completely failed in basically every category that it could possibly fail in, and I shake my head. I go, why did they even bother with this? It was a complete and total catastrophe, especially when you look at what another MMO studio did they made this game called Tower of Fantasy. It was good for like a little bit. It was like sort of like a really cheap version of like Genshin Impact, but it was like highly predatory and had some other problems with it. That studio took what they actually learned from what they did in that game. They actually went around and said, "Oh my goodness, let's make an actual game now that has like actual good content in it." And so they're making this game called Netherness to Everest, I think it's called.
Yeah,
And
close to that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and like this game is like, again, this is basically their competitor, essentially, right? Like in combat style, looks, general overall feel. They're clearly like in the same kind of category. They're not the exact same type of game, but they're going to attract the same type of people, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
saw
and then
Asmongold's video on it.
yeah,
Neverness to
yeah.
Everness. And he was,
Never that's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what it is.
it
And
looks
it is
good.
beautiful. Oh yeah, it looks phenomenal. The combat looks like it's pretty general combat. It's like combat that you have in Genshin and in all the other types of games. It's like
Yeah.
Zelda, like that kind of stuff.
But
It's open
it's,
world. It's kind of crazy, but they do have like car chases and they've got other stuff.
yeah. And
And
you could just tell
they've
by the
got
way it looks that it handles well and it looks
yeah,
deeply immersive. Like it's got
yeah.
really interesting art direction. Yep.
Yeah, and they're really pushing at it. They're really trying to evolve the genre. And I say congratulations because this is the kind of stuff that we need. And then we look over at again from our earlier stories, we look over at Blizzard, and Blizzard has just released their War Within expansion,
Hmm.
and this is an expansion that was taken over by Chris Metzen about halfway through. For anybody who doesn't know, Chris Metzen's one of the old school guys who originally took over. Sorry, didn't take over. Who originally created the world of World of Warcraft back when it was an RTS for the most part. He created the concept, he did the art, he did the story direction, he wrote a bunch of it, and he went off. He left many years ago, and he went on this like journey of self discovery, and then he came back, and this expansion to the last expansion again, barring like drama issues that always happen. It's like, you changed the font color of my spell. You deserve to burn in hell. It's like, what? Calm down, dude. It's just a fun, like calm down. But but yeah, you can tell that where games are that have leaders that have passion, even though they still have general issues, they still have like some of that direction issues. WoW and Blizzard just generally are still recovering after Bobby tried to strangle it in a fountain in public. Slowly just humiliating it for years, not giving them any of the money that they generated, paying employees so little that they were actually considered destitute as far as California pay regulations goes, working them upwards to like 90 to 100 hours a week, trying to like draw as much blood from the stone as possible. Just really general evil, James Bond villainesque behavior and whatnot. So they're on the road to recovery, and
Yeah.
they got rid of a lot of the baggage, the really bad baggage that company had. Like Blizzard had a lot of like Activision inspired, like Bobby Kotick fan boys who were like, yes, our goal is not to create games that people love. Our goal is to create something that strips those people of their money as fast as possible.
Yep.
and so that's what they did, and Blizzard is still recovering. It's not back yet. It's on the recovery, but even compared to that game that has had a lot of ups and downs over the last few years, mostly downs, um, even Blue Protocol couldn't compare to that. And this is coming from Amazon, who stepped into the gaming industry and said, "We're going to do all this cool stuff." And then the cool stuff was, especially with Blue Protocol, basically like screw with it, and the developers, to the point where they couldn't actually make a good game. They were basically forced to make a very bad version of it. And I would say that that's basically everything that they've touched has been, as far as the gaming side of things, has been really like handled very, 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 very poorly, by decisions that you would say, are you crazy? Why would you even do that? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So yeah, Blue Protocol was supposed to launch globally. It didn't even make it to its global release before they basically said, shut it down. It's not doing good enough. We're not hitting anything that we need. And it was because they didn't grow anything. They didn't learn anything from any of the past failures. They just tried to cash cow it. And again, with Concord, with the issues that Activision had done for the last like 10 years, 15 years, they have been constantly trying to cash cow everything. Just make it so that it's a revolving, thing. Like they walk into a circus that's being built, and there's a guy going, yeah, we want to build a roller coaster, and we're going to have it go through some water, and then we're going to have a zoo portion. And no, you're going to make 50,000 carousels. Okay? They're just going to go around in a circle really slow, because the one carousel by the front, that seems to draw in a lot of people. Everybody goes on the carousel. So therefore, that's what we want. Give us 50,000 different carousels. That's all we care about. And if you don't know what carousel it is, it's where you get on this ride, and it just spins in a slow circle, and you ride on a fake horse, and you go in a circle. Really popular, crazy popular in the 17 and 1800s. This was like something that nobody had ever seen before. It blew their minds. But if you're going to make an amusement park today, probably don't want to have more than one carousel ride.
Yeah.
Right? You most certainly don't want to make 50,000 of them and have them be the same garbage that they've made in the last 5 years. And that is, again, what Concord, what EA, all these companies, unfortunately, I think we're going to see it pretty heavily with some of our old favorites like Dragon Age and other games. Sorry, I sneezed.
It's okay.
But yeah, just like we're going to see this coming for more of our games, and we're seeing this now with some of the Ubisoft titles. It's like, yeah, Ubisoft had some, they had some really great games in the past, but it appears as if they've said, okay, strip everything that's got heart in it, and we're just going to keep pumping the same stuff out over and over and over again until people, eventually cave and buy our garbage.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's essentially what I feel like is going on here, and I wish that wasn't the case. I really do. I don't think it's what we want to have the experience of to deal with, but just frankly, I think this is all we're getting from some of these big companies, and they're resulting in these games where, like Concord, like Blue Protocol, where they come out, they're supposed to have enormous fan backing, and they hit the wall so fast. And again, it's like especially with Blue Protocol. I don't know if this happened with Concord very much. In Blue Protocol, they censored. They spent large amounts of their time and resources censoring the characters and the outfits from the Eastern version of the game for the Otherworld releases of the game, and created a lot of division back and forth, and a lot of consternation about that, because people were telling them, oh no, you can't do this, you got to fix this, and they were just going back and forth on some of these design choices, and they basically burned resources and time instead of them actually doing something that people actually wanted to do. And it's just it's stuff like it really comes down to a lot of investors in this case. Gaming is reaching $300 billion of revenue a year. I think it's probably already like it's getting there.
Yeah.
They're expecting to hit 250 billion by like the next couple of years, and it'll end up hitting 300 billion after that. And it's like it's this big thing. It's the new big thing. A lot of game stuff that we're going to be getting in movies and television, stuff like that. But with it, it comes with this very dumb concept, and we've talked about this before, where you have to make the game for everybody, because if you don't make the game for everybody, then you're just missing out on sales. And when you're making a game about the you know the Diablo, the Lord of Hell, and you're like, hey, make sure that's family friendly so we can sell that on cereal boxes, in a couple months. We got the Kellogg's guy online here, and we want to sell little funny, like, cutesy Diablo Lord of Destruction to all the preteens out there, because that's really market openness right there. Yeah, that's just like, no, stop. Make the game for the gamers. And Asmund Gold said something really good about a couple of these titles that we've talked about today, where and I use him because he literally is one of the top streamers in the world. I heard somebody I was listening to one of his streams this morning, and somebody called him like what do you know? It's like, what do you? Oh, he's only like one of the most like prestigious streamers in the world, and he's played more. I think he put. I heard that he put 35,000 hours into WoW. It's like you will, if you became a full-time WoW player today, you would probably not catch up to his level of understanding of the game and the history
In your
in the
life.
next, like, in your lifetime. Like, you're unless you're like a 10-year-old, like, you're working on like losing experience. Like, it's just, that's not something that's going to happen. And instead of looking to people like that, people that know the industries, the gamers who know the industries, again, like we have in some other stuff, that where it's like this whole industry needs to change. Like, no, there's a lot of things that don't need to change in the industry, because it turns out that they've been working for a really long time. And Capcom came out and they announced that they're tweaking, almost, they're coming out with a battle game collection of all their beat 'em up games, and they're censoring almost every single game for blood, violence, outfits, mostly outfits when it comes to the females. I think that's all the censoring that's going on, is any clothing, is like, oh, does a girl have any skin showing? All right, well, cover her up. It's like, turns out that I don't think people want that. And I think people want a game that's like got some like teeth to it. And we're just going to see more of these companies fail, because they keep diving into this stuff. It doesn't work. Stop trying to force it in. It's not going to work. And there was a really nasty article. I'm not going to even talk about it. Like, specifics on it. Very nasty article I saw came out today. Like, really nasty. Just like somebody getting in the face of somebody and basically trying to spit in their face. And it was just horrendous. And it's like, you are fighting an avalanche. You're not going to win. It's not about, all the things, the isms that they can come up with. It's not about that. It's just about making stuff that people want to play. Because escapism, turns out, is about escaping from reality, not hyper focusing on how, it's a perfect mirror of reality, which it never is, because it's escapism. It's fantasy. It's like, it's not supposed to deal with our day-to-day life. You're supposed to be able to tell stories through it, not replicate to your current day in it. There's a niche for that, but that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's my rant for today. And it depresses me. It does. It really does depress me a little bit. Seeing this kind of vitriolic hatred, where it's like, actually, people just want to play games, and the games that they want to play are supposed to be not like a one-to-one to all of the current day political issues that we have to deal with. That's not actually a way to make good games. A way to make good games is to focus on good gameplay and story, and like usually like artistic or sound quality. It's like those are the things that are actually important. If you have somebody in your company who doesn't have anything to do with any of those, that person is weighing you down. They're probably acting like an anchor, and you're trying to paddle out, through the storm, and that is not going to be a helpful thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, bad news for gaming, I think, in general, until this kind of stuff gets completely shaken out. And it really is. Like, people are starting to see the difference, and we'll continue to see the difference when games like Concord keep smashing into the wall at high speed, and other games where it's like, yeah, no, we just wanted to make what the people wanted. It turns out that stuff, sells a lot better.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, I'm optimistic that it's happened enough times that things are going to start to make a turnaround relatively soon. If I would imagine, though, like in the case of Amazon, who's been behind this game and other games that are sort of repeat that sort of proof that the people behind it aren't really passionate. They're just doing like corporate directives, like you said. They'll have the money to continue to do that, and at least when they fail, we can at least have some solace in being able to laugh at it, not at the developers, but just at the just the stupid decisions behind it. But they'll keep doing that, and then the rest of the industry will catch on. Anyway, let's just move on to the positive stuff that I promised. Sorry it's taken us this long to get to it, guys, but anyway, Sonic 3 is coming out later this year, the movie, that is. So I got a kick out of the first two Sonic movies. The first one, it's fine. It's okay. I mean, it's great for kids, but for adults, it's whatever. That said, I would say I enjoyed Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I thought that was a significant improvement. And you know what, Saib? I feel pretty good about Sonic 3 being even better than that. And you know why? Keanu Reeves' Shadow, baby! So the trailer came out this past week. And it's
Keanu Reeves, really?
Yeah, it's Keanu Reeves. Did you not know? Did you not pick up on his voice? You didn't hear Johnny Silverhand?
I thought it was going to be... I haven't seen it yet. I thought it was going to be like Idris Elba.
No, Idris Elba's Knuckles.
Oh no! Oh, sorry. I'm mixing the two up. Right. Yeah. Okay. No, Shadow. Yes. Okay. I know what I'm talking about. I thought they changed the actor, and I was like, why would they do that? Now I see. I'm not paying attention.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, but like if you hear him in the trailer, like his voice just fits Shadow perfectly and his personality, and it's like a couple of like, sometimes you watch a trailer and like the jokes don't really land. The jokes in this trailer, like they're very, consistent with what we've gotten from the past two movies. They're not bad. It's just like you're just constantly reminded that the movie's made for kids. But it's fine because you just go in and watch the movie, you turn your brain off and have fun, and just appreciate Sonic for what it is. And I imagine that with the addition of Shadow and just like the the funny stuff that you can do with the brooding Shadow. It's going to make the movie a whole lot better, and it just seems like they continue to improve. And the trailer is nice. I really enjoyed it. And I'm actually, weirdly enough, looking forward to watching it in December. Which is, I'm pretty sure that's when it's coming out. So you haven't seen it? You haven't seen the trailer?
I have not had the time to see the trailer yet. I have not had the time to do most everything that I need to do.
Fair enough, man. I get it. Like up until up until this week, for the past month and a half. Anytime I haven't just been working on videos, I've just been, I've been dealing with health issues and along with other priorities, so it's been a nightmare. So I get it, it's fine. But I would recommend checking it out. It's cute. So guys, go check out Sonic 3. And then finally, this is news that makes me really, really happy. So, I think about my favorite game developers in the industry right now. Obviously, one of my favorite is probably From Software at the moment, famous for Elden Ring. I like Insomniac. I like Sucker Punch. But if From Software didn't exist, I'd probably have to say that my favorite developer is Remedy. Just because every time they put out a game, it's so unlike anything else that comes out, and they've yet to let me down with one of their games. Yeah, the only one that I think came closest to not being great was probably Quantum Break. And there are problems with that game, but overall, I did enjoy it quite a bit. Problem is, not enough people buy their games. I think the most successful game that they had was Control, which sold 2 million copies. Honestly, that game should sell like 5 or 6 million copies at least. It is so damned good. The games they produce are like David Lynch movies, but with guns. It's awesome, dude.
Right.
Yeah, but unfortunately, because they're so committed to their craft and pursuing art in the way that they want to, obviously it's not going to result necessarily in the best return on their investments. Though they did get a return on their investment with Control. Obviously, the most recent game they came out with was Alan Wake 2, which was a sequel to like a 13-year-old game, and even the 13-year-old game didn't sell all that well. But that's what they wanted to do, and the game was amazing and won a whole bunch of awards, but it wasn't until recently that they started to get some return on their investment. Well, this is just further proof of how committed they are to their craft. This piece of news, according to Variety, which is a movie trade, they said that Remedy is partnering with Annapurna Interactive to not only co-produce and co-finance the upcoming Control sequel game, which is great. They're also going to be producing film and TV projects within the Alan Wake and Control universe. This makes me almost as happy as if Spyro 4 were going to be announced tomorrow, because I love Alan Wake and Control to death. I love them so much, and just the mere fact that we're going to get more media from these games makes me so happy. And it's especially makes me happy because the way stories are told in Control and Alan Wake are ripe for transitioning into film and TV. Because, a part of the problem that video game adaptations have had for so many years is that nobody in the industry knew how to adapt them. There's a difference between experiencing a story that's made for an active experience like a game and experiencing a story passively like you do with a movie or a TV show. We're starting to get that. And still some properties are easier to transition than others. One that will be very, very, very easy to transition is Control and Alan Wake. The stories for those games are amazing, and they will work just as well in TV form as they do in game form. And ideally, Annapurna and Remedy working together, they'll be able to create the multimedia experience that these games deserve, and they will start to make all the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Saib, have you ever played, like, I know you played Max Payne. I know you played that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever played Alan Wake or Control?
I watched a lot of people play Control, and I thought it was really good. I didn't have the time to actually like play it, but I think that's one of like, I think that game and its gameplay was one of those things where it's like, yes, that's what we want to see evolving in the games industry. So that one was really good. The Alan Wake series I haven't gotten into because the story is interesting, but I need to set aside a large amount of time to go through it.
That's
Otherwise,
true.
I'm gonna lose it because I'll go in and I won't be able to get enough of it. And it's just one of those things that it's like, I really need more time.
Yeah, it's so true. Alan Wake is very dense, narratively speaking, and that's kind of an unintentional pun because Alan Wake is about a writer, but it's one of those games where you invest your time in it, and it's actually worth investing your time in it just because the story is so well written. Like,
Mhm.
I'm hard pressed to find a writer in the games industry that is better than Sam Lake when it comes to writing scripts. Yeah, I think Amy Hennig off the top of my head, Hideo Kojima, maybe Tetsuya Takahashi. What's the name of the guy who wrote Mass Effect? Drew Karpyshyn?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. And Sam Lake is right up amongst all of them. I hope that the guy continues to be able to do whatever the hell he needs to do because the guy just cranks out nothing but gold, and I expect nothing less from whatever he does with Control 2, Alan Wake 3, and whatever these projects are. So, yep, very happy, and the rest of you all should be. And if you're not, you don't care about Alan Wake 2 or the Alan Wake series or Control, you really, really should. Please, for the love of God, play those games. They are off the chain amazing. All right. That does it for this episode of Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you hit the like button, because when you do that, it not only helps out this video, but all the other videos on the Triple S League channel. I want to thank...
There's one additional thing I want to mention, that is that today, I think it was today or yesterday, the demo for Visions of Mana came out. So if you're if you're a fan of the Mana series, go check that out, because it's out and it looks, again, one of these games where it's like, I played through a lot of the we did a whole bunch of guides and stuff for the previous game that previously released. It was a remake of the original, and it was so good. It was so well done. It was a wonderful capstone to a memory of no, capstone might sound a little weird, but it was a wonderful it was a wonderful memory, finishing off of that memory of because I never got to finish it, because it came out back in the day where you had to rent I had to rent the console for a weekend and play through the games, and I could never actually finish it. Not 100% it. And I was finally able to do that with the version of it that came out I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was a while ago, but they've created a new entry in the series, and it's out today. The demo, the full game is going to be, I don't think it's got an actual release date yet, but it's,
dude, I think it comes out today. I think Visions of Mana comes out today. Here, forgive my keyboard for a second, guys. Let me just double check this very quickly. Yeah, Visions of Mana comes out August 29th, 2024, so today.
Oh, it is today. So the demo, okay, I see, because it had it on my, I hate this UI that sends me notifications. It's like, demo is out today, no release date for the actual version. And I was like, oh, okay, well, at least we get to play the demo. No, it's actually out today.
Right. It's all good.
Always always go to Steam for this stuff. These other websites are garbage. But yeah, no, this is out. Man, I'm not gonna.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, Visions of Mana. I've heard wonderful things about the series. My wife played a lot of it, and I've heard decent things about. Not overwhelmingly great things, but decent things, enough that I want to check it out. And it looks like a very charming game, something to sort of turn my brain off to, which is, honestly, I could use some more games like that nowadays. Good call, Syb. Just back to what I was saying, make sure you leave a comment if you have any thoughts on any or all the stuff that we talked about. Syb, thanks as always for doing this with me. Anything you want to say before we're done?
Nope. I'll hopefully be able to jump to this game sometime in the future, because this is one of my favorite series, especially from my childhood. This is something that I ultimately want to play with my kids. It would be great.
Oh yeah, good call. Yeah. And just remember, you guys can find me on all the regular forms of social media at Max Derrat. I have my own personal channel, which I'll link in the description box below if you want to check out my stuff there. Make sure to check out all the other stuff on the Triple S League channel as well. All right, guys. Until we do this again next week, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.
Goodbye.